My wife disappeared with our baby. Then I found the truth, hidden in a hospital file. The last thing my wife said before she disappeared was, "If anything happens, don't let them tell our daughter who she is." Then she kissed our 6-month-old baby, walked out the front door, and vanished. Her phone went dead. Her bank account wasn't touched. Her passport stayed in our bedroom drawer. The police told me she probably left voluntarily. My family whispered that she had abandoned us. Even my closest friends eventually stopped asking questions. But 3 months later, a single envelope appeared in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was one sentence written in my wife's handwriting. "Stop looking for me. Find Emma's birth records." That was the moment I realized I had been searching for the wrong person all along. My name is Daniel. Until that day, I believed my life was ordinary. I worked as a mechanical engineer. My wife, Sarah, taught music to elementary school children. Our daughter, Emma, had just turned 6 months old. We weren't rich. We weren't famous. We argued about dishes. We forgot anniversaries. We laughed at terrible movies. It was a normal life. Or so I thought. Looking back now, the warning signs had always been there. Sarah would sometimes freeze whenever someone knocked unexpectedly on our door. She avoided hospitals whenever possible. She never spoke about her childhood. Whenever I asked about her parents, she'd smile politely and change the subject. I assumed the memories were painful. I respected her silence. I never imagined it was hiding something far bigger. 2 weeks before she disappeared, strange things began happening. A dark SUV parked across the street every evening. It never stayed longer than 20 minutes. Whenever I walked outside, it drove away. Sarah noticed it too. She became nervous. She started checking every window before going to bed. One night, I woke up around 3 in the morning. She wasn't beside me. I found her sitting in Emma's nursery, crying quietly while holding our sleeping daughter. When I asked what was wrong, she simply whispered, "I wish I had told you everything sooner," before I could ask another question. She forced a smile and said she was just tired. I believed her. I still hate myself for believing her. The morning she disappeared seemed perfectly ordinary. She made coffee, fed Emma, kissed me goodbye. Then she left to buy diapers. She never came back. Our baby disappeared with her. Hours turned into days. Days turned into weeks. Police searched. Neighbors shared flyers. Security cameras showed Sarah entering a nearby subway station. But there was no footage of her leaving. It was as if she had dissolved into thin air. 3 months later, that mysterious envelope changed everything. Find Emma's birth records. I drove straight to the hospital where Emma had been born. The receptionist politely informed me that no information could be released. I explained that I was Emma's father. She checked the computer. Then her smile disappeared. She looked confused. She excused herself. 10 minutes later, hospital security escorted me outside. No explanation. Nothing. That frightened me far more than any answer could have. The next day, I hired a lawyer. Within 48 hours, we received a phone call. The hospital claimed there had been an administrative mistake. When they finally released Emma's medical file, half the pages were missing. Someone had removed them. My lawyer stared at the documents. This isn't normal. That night, someone broke into my house. Nothing valuable was stolen. Only Emma's hospital papers. Whoever entered ignored my television, ignored my laptop, ignored cash sitting in a kitchen drawer. They wanted only one thing: the file. Now I knew Sarah hadn't imagined the danger. Someone really was hiding something. I searched every box in our attic, inside an old suitcase. I found a small wooden music box. Hidden beneath the velvet lining, there was a flash drive. Sarah had left it there. The video began playing. She looked terrified. If you're watching this, I'm probably gone. Daniel, everything I told you about my childhood was a lie. Not because I wanted to deceive you, because I was trying to protect you. My hands were shaking. She continued. I was adopted when I was 5. The people who raised me loved me. But they weren't my biological parents. A few months ago, someone contacted me. They claimed to know who my real family was. She paused. They weren't looking for me. They were looking for my daughter. The video ended abruptly. No explanation, no names, just silence. I spent weeks tracking every clue. Eventually, I located the private investigator Sarah had secretly hired. At first, he refused to speak. Then I showed him the video. His face turned pale. He locked his office door. Your wife discovered something powerful people wanted buried. He handed me a faded newspaper clipping from 28 years earlier. A maternity ward fire. Several newborn records destroyed. Multiple infants transferred to different hospitals. Some identities permanently lost. Sarah believed she had been one of those babies, and Emma's DNA might expose what really happened. Everything suddenly made sense. The strange SUV, the missing hospital records, the break-in. Someone feared the truth. Not because of Sarah, because of what Emma's identity could reveal. The investigator gave me one final address, a small cabin near a remote lake. It belongs to someone your wife trusted. I drove through the night. My heart pounded with every mile. When I reached the cabin, the lights were on. I slowly opened the door. There, holding Emma, was Sarah, alive. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. I wanted to tell you everything, but if they knew where you were, they would come after you too. I held both of them tighter than I ever thought possible. For several minutes, none of us spoke. Sarah finally explained everything. She had discovered that someone had been altering birth records decades ago. Children had been illegally reassigned after the hospital fire. Several influential people had spent years ensuring the truth never surfaced. When Emma was born, a routine DNA sample unexpectedly connected Sarah to records someone believed had disappeared forever. That was when strangers started watching our house. Sarah realized waiting meant risking Emma's life. So she made the hardest decision any mother could make. She disappeared before they could reach our daughter. Not because she wanted to leave me, because she believed distance was the only thing keeping us alive, with help from investigators and honest detectives. The hidden records were finally recovered. The truth reached the courts. Several officials were charged for decades of fraud and document tampering. Families who had spent their lives searching for missing relatives finally received answers. Not every ending was happy. Some parents learned the truth too late. Some children never met the people searching for them. But lies that had survived for almost 30 years finally ended. Today, Emma is 7 years old. She knows her mother is the bravest person she's ever met. Sometimes people ask me whether I ever forgave Sarah for disappearing. They expect me to say it took years. They're wrong. The moment I opened that cabin door and saw the fear in her eyes, I understood. She hadn't run away from us. She had run toward the only chance our family had to survive. And every night when Emma falls asleep safely in her own bed, I remember that anonymous letter. Stop looking for me. Find Emma's birth records. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a map leading me back to my family. Sometimes, the greatest act of love doesn't look like staying. Sometimes, it looks like disappearing long enough to bring everyone home.